I was young when I realized that the place I lived was special. At first, I didn't notice it. It was just normal to me. Growing up, I didn't hear the sounds of barking dogs or hissing cats, as pets weren't allowed in the city. I didn't think twice about it. I also didn't think it was strange that every week we had mandatory blood tests or that our city had no jails. But there was something even stranger. Everyone in the city was given a soulmate. I didn't understand how it worked, but there were the matchmakers. They would send out small slips of paper, each with a name, your soulmate's name. Nobody knew how the matchmakers worked or where they came from, but their accuracy was undeniable. No one ever got divorced, and every citizen would receive their slip on their 18th birthday. We were allowed to ask around, trying to find the person whose name matched the one on our slip. But it couldn't be forced. It was as though fate would align when the time was right. Our lives were ruled by rules too. Simple things. No going outside after 2 a.m., no pets, mandatory blood tests. Some rules were given to us on our 18th birthday, alongside the slip with our soulmate's name. Most were strange, but not impossible to follow. As I got older, I began to realize just how special my city was, but I didn't care. Life felt simple, comfortable, and perfect. The night before my 18th birthday, I couldn't sleep. The idea of receiving my soulmate's name made me restless. I never really believed in soulmates, but the evidence around me was undeniable. My parents were happily married, their names matching perfectly. My older sister Catelyn had gotten her slip the year before, and she was currently in a happy relationship with a man named Roger. I couldn't wait to see who I would be paired with. The next morning, I woke up early, my heart racing. Today was the day I would receive my slip. I swung my legs out of bed and with a little effort got dressed. I wanted to act calm, not like one of those people who obsess over their soulmate, but I could hardly contain my excitement. As I stepped out of my room, I was greeted by the smell of waffles and the chatter of my family. "Catelyn!" I exclaimed when I saw my sister sitting at the kitchen table, smiling at me. She'd come home for my birthday, and I couldn't be happier to see her. I wrapped her in a hug, and she returned it enthusiastically. "Happy birthday, hon," my mom said, smiling as she prepared breakfast. I asked about the envelope I knew would be waiting for me, and Catelyn pointed to the front table. My heart pounded as I picked it up. The white envelope was unmistakable. The paper inside would change everything. After breakfast, I opened the envelope and read through the new rules. They were strange but simple. No one over 18 could go in the city waters, use faucets after midnight, or even share their rules with those under 18. They were odd, but they didn't seem hard to follow. Then came the slip with my soulmate's name. "Avery," I read aloud. Avery. The name felt familiar, though I couldn't place it. I passed the slip to Catelyn, and she nodded approvingly. "Nice name," she said, handing it back to me. I felt my mind racing. Avery, was it the girl from my history class? Or the one I had seen in pre-calculus? The name lingered in my mind, and I tried not to obsess over it. Later, I went to school, where my friends eagerly asked about the name on my slip. I told them it was Avery, and we all tried to think of anyone we knew with that name. Joseph, one of my friends, wouldn't let it go, offering name after name of girls he knew named Avery. But none of them felt quite right. None of them felt like my Avery. After school, we gathered outside, and Joseph suggested we head to the river to cool off. But something about the river didn't sit right with me. There were rules, after all. I couldn't go near the water after turning 18, no matter how hot it got. I hesitated, but eventually agreed to go with them, making sure to stay on the shore. As we all gathered by the river, I felt an unease settling in my chest. My friends were splashing in the water, and I tried to enjoy the moment. But suddenly, Joseph, in his usual carefree manner, picked me up and tossed me into the river. Panic gripped me as I was thrown into the cold, fast-moving water. My body was pulled deeper, and I struggled to keep my head above the surface. Something beneath the water dragged me further down, and I fought against it with all my strength. I was out of breath, my body growing limp as I sank. And then, just as I thought I couldn't hold on any longer, I felt a tug on the back of my shirt. Something pulled me up, out of the water. I gasped for air, confused and disoriented. I was set down roughly on something hard. My vision blurred, and my exhausted body collapsed. When I woke up, I was being shaken by someone. A boy about my age with messy dark hair and blue eyes was looking down at me. His face lit up with relief when I opened my eyes. "Good, you're awake. Come on, we need to move," he said urgently. I stared at him, still confused. "Who are you?" I managed to ask. "My name is Avery," he said. A cold chill ran through me as I realized what had just happened. Avery, the name from my slip, the name of my soulmate. I had been saved by the very person I was meant to be with. I never realized how special the city I grew up in was. Living there my whole life, I thought it was just like any other city, only to learn later that it wasn't. There were strange rules, no pets, mandatory blood tests every week, and most perplexing of all, no divorces. Everyone had a soulmate, and that soulmate was chosen for you by the mysterious matchmakers, people no one ever saw or understood, but they were always right. On your 18th birthday, you'd receive a slip with the name of your soulmate, and the rest was up to fate. That day came for me, and as I eagerly awaited my slip, I couldn't help but wonder if my soulmate would be someone I already knew, like the girl named Avery from my history class. As much as I tried to distract myself, the excitement and uncertainty of meeting my soulmate weighed heavily on my mind. The next morning, I found my slip and discovered the name, Avery. But when I looked around, I couldn't find anyone who felt right. Throughout the day, I thought about Avery, wondering who they could be. But then something strange happened. A day that should have been full of joy became unsettling when I realized the world around me wasn't what I thought it was. I was in a version of the city, but it was twisted, colorless, glitching like a broken video game. That's when I met him, Avery. But this wasn't the Avery I had expected. He was different, dark-haired, mysterious, and he told me that I had to trust him, that this was the world beyond my city, a place for people who broke the rules. I didn't understand it then, but the world I thought I knew was no longer safe. Avery wasn't just some stranger. He was my soulmate, and I was beginning to understand why. Avery led me through this strange city, an exact replica of the one I knew, only distorted and wrong. Buildings were colorless, and everything felt off. As we walked, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us. The fear I felt was suffocating, and Avery was my only anchor. I had to follow him, but I didn't understand the rules. The city, he explained, was a place where those who broke the laws were sent. The lost ones, people who had once been part of the real world, had now been twisted into something else. The only way to escape this nightmare was to find the door, but it was guarded by the lost ones. Beings who were more terrifying than anything I had ever imagined. They weren't human anymore. They were the remnants of people who had been discarded, angry, and dangerous. Avery had been trapped here for months, ever since he had broken a simple rule. He had watched TV on the 14th, a day when watching TV was forbidden. The consequence? He was pulled into this place, into the distorted city, and had been trying to find a way out ever since. Avery explained that there was a way to escape, but it would take both of us. We had to fight back against the lost ones. But more than that, we had to trust in the weapons we were given. Guns that could erase the lost ones from existence, but only if we believed in their power. At first, it seemed impossible. The thought of using a gun to believe someone out of existence was absurd. But as we fought our way through the city, the reality of it set in. Avery was right. It worked. But things took a turn when Avery was captured by a lost one. I had to act fast, and in a panic, I shot the creature, saving Avery's life. But just as I felt the rush of victory, I turned to see the man from my dream, the one who had haunted my thoughts. He was the last one left, and he was closing in on me. The pain was unimaginable when he attacked. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Everything went black as I collapsed. But Avery wouldn't let me go. He fought to keep me alive, his arms shaking as he tried to stop the bleeding. I had to tell him the truth, the one thing I had kept hidden. The name on my slip wasn't mine. I had lied. My name was Theodore, not Charles. Even in my final moments, Avery refused to leave me. He carried me to the exit, fighting against everything to get me out. And when the door finally opened, we stepped through it together, not knowing what awaited us. All I could think about was that in this strange new world, Avery was my constant, the one person who made everything feel like it was worth fighting for. I woke up in a new place. The familiar voice of Avery greeted me, and I knew things would never be the same. The world we had left behind was no longer what we had believed it to be. The truth was harsher, darker, but Avery and I, together, we had a chance. And as I slowly opened my eyes, I heard the words, "Mr. Shillings, we've been expecting you." I've always believed that humans are naturally curious. Curiosity has driven countless discoveries and inventions throughout history, from the wheel to electricity. In today's world, curiosity is just a click away, with the answers to almost any question readily available. When I was in middle school, I became curious about the many variations of the word confusion. I learned there were plenty, but one stood out to me: disoriented. The word by definition refers to someone who is so confused that they lose their sense of time or place. They become detached from their surroundings and lose clarity of thought. I found myself feeling exactly that way, disoriented when I heard the words, "Ah, Mr. Shillings, we've been expecting you." Opening my eyes, I winced from the harsh white light above me, and when my vision adjusted, my stomach dropped. A man stood over me, old, with white receding hair and a neat beard. His attire was entirely white, from his button-up shirt to his pants, even his tie. He smiled at me with a look that seemed too pleased for the situation, his eyes studying my every reaction while I struggled to make sense of it all. You've been expecting me?" I asked, trying to mask the fear in my voice. His smile widened and he reached for a clipboard, explaining that I'd been expected for a while and that all my questions would be answered in time. The room around me looked like a hospital, but something was off. The nurses, also dressed in white, moved about with clipboards, and in the far corner was a blood-red door, the same door Avery and I had just come through. My heart raced as I realized Avery wasn't in the room with me. I bolted upright, only to see the man's unsettling smile still in place. "Where's Avery?" I demanded, my voice firmer than it had been moments ago. The man's smile faltered for a brief second before he reassured me that Avery was quite fine and instructed me not to make sudden movements to avoid disrupting my healing process. Healing process? I looked down and found a scar where the stab wound used to be, my hands shaking as I touched it. How was it possible that I was healed already? The man offered a walk, but my frustration flared. I wanted answers, and I wasn't going to back down. I insisted I wanted to see Avery, and after a brief pause, he led me to a keypad on the wall. I followed closely, my gaze landing on a table where Avery's gun rested. Without thinking, I grabbed it and tucked it into my waistband, hoping he wouldn't notice. As he entered a code, the clouded glass before me slowly cleared, revealing a small, dark room. My breath caught when I saw Avery lying on the bed, unconscious, hooked up to machines. His ankle was bandaged from the attack by the Lost Ones. The sight of him, motionless and vulnerable, made a wave of panic hit me. Was he? "He's fine, just sleeping," the man assured me, but I couldn't shake the dread crawling up my spine. "You can take a walk if you'd like," he added with that same unnerving smile. I wanted nothing more than to break free, but I knew I had to play along. For Avery's sake, I would bide my time and wait for the right moment to escape. I forced a smile, pretending to agree. As we walked down a long hallway, I tried to memorize the layout, looking for an exit. "So what did you mean when you said you've been expecting me?" I asked, trying to hide my anxiety with curiosity. The man explained that I carried a gene vital for becoming a matchmaker, a leader, someone who could bring together soulmates for the city. The idea seemed absurd, but as he spoke, I began to piece together that everything was part of a much larger, manipulative system. He mentioned how blood work was used to identify potential matchmakers, people with the gene who would later be trained for the role. He also made it clear that those who broke the rules were sent below, a place where people were erased from society. I couldn't help the anger building inside me. I wasn't one of these people, these tools for their system. The more he spoke, the more his words rang hollow. When I asked how they healed me, he proudly revealed that their technology was state-of-the-art, capable of healing injuries in mere hours. His enthusiasm made me sick. Eventually, our walk led us to a dead end, where a set of mahogany doors awaited us. The man stopped and informed me that a matchmaker would be arriving shortly to begin my training. His cheerful demeanor didn't match the dark truth behind his words. I tried to protest, but he reassured me that my family and friends would forget me. My memories would be altered. The life I would lead as a matchmaker would be perfect. Everything I ever wanted. But it wasn't what I wanted. I thought of Avery, of the time we'd spent together, the trust we'd built. There was no way I was going to let these people control me. "Go to hell," I told him softly. Confusion flashed across his face and I seized the opportunity. I pulled the gun from my waistband, the safety off, and aimed it at him. The smile on his face disappeared as he stumbled back, the hole in his chest smoking, wires visible through the wound. With the man incapacitated, alarms blared, and I bolted down the hall, desperate to find Avery. After several twists and turns, I finally burst into the room where he lay, lifeless behind glass. Without hesitation, I grabbed a chair and shattered the glass, stepping into the room. I ran to Avery's side, tearing off his mask, shaking him gently. "Avery, please, wake up." Tears blurred my vision, and I begged him not to leave me. Then slowly, his eyes fluttered open. "Theo," he whispered. My heart soared as I helped him sit up. "We need to go," I urged. "Can you walk?" I asked quickly, my voice full of urgency. Despite the pain, he nodded. Together, we made our way down the hallway, my arm around him to support his injured foot. The sound of sirens still echoed, but we kept moving. We reached the emergency exit and pushed through. I could hear the footsteps of our pursuers behind us, but we were so close. We could make it. Suddenly, Avery collapsed, clutching his leg in agony. I refused to leave him. "I'm not leaving you here," I said fiercely. With one last surge of energy, I dragged Avery toward the exit. Just as the black-clad figures closed in, I opened the door and pulled us both through to freedom. We collapsed onto the ground, breathless. I glanced around, realizing where we were. We were home. 5 years had passed since we had been trapped in that nightmare, and in that moment, everything felt perfect. I held Avery close, and we were finally free.